Welcome back, my friends, to Short Movie Channel. At the beginning of today's movie, we meet Veronica, a high school student. She's naturally rebellious, doesn't care about anything, doesn't follow school rules, and doesn't listen to her teachers or parents. She often gets into fights with her classmates, and her academic performance is constantly declining. But she wasn't always like this. Up until a year ago, she was a sweet and well-liked girl who cared about those around her. She was also smart, and among the top students in school. However, during the summer break, she made new friends and became more aware of environmental issues like global warming, deforestation, and other concerns. Now, Veronica has completely turned vegetarian. Not only that, but she constantly leads protests at school against the use of animal-based products like plastic and similar materials. All the teachers, students, and even her own family have grown tired of her behavior. But Veronica doesn't care. She's determined to continue her ways and tries to persuade other students to join her cause, whether they genuinely want to or not. Unfortunately, this leads her to the principal's office. The principal gives her a lecture about how much her academic performance has declined and scolds her for her behavior. But Veronica remains indifferent, continuing her defiant attitude. She even tries to outsmart the principal, but when the principal loses her patience, she decides to suspend Veronica indefinitely. Finally, the teenage girl realizes the seriousness of the situation and tries to apologize, but it's too late. The principal has already made up her mind and refuses to change her decision, no matter what. When Veronica returns home, she gets another lecture from her parents. They explain to her how much she has changed over the past year, and sometimes, they feel as if someone has kidnapped their daughter and replaced her with someone else. They remind her that she used to play with them, loved going out with them, and would often fall asleep in their arms. But now, she's like a ghost of the person she once was. Afterward, Veronica's father hands her a flyer for an institute called Professor Genevieve's School for Outstanding Girls, which specializes in teaching discipline to girls and correcting their behavior. Simply put, the school is an expert at reforming spoiled girls. Veronica reads the flyer carefully and immediately tells her parents that she refuses to go. However, they make it clear that she has no other choice. The next day, they take her to the school. When they arrive, they find that the main building resembles a haunted castle. The school's headmistress is none other than Professor Genevieve herself. On top of that, all the girls there have the same exact hairstyle, and they don't seem to be acting naturally. Later, Professor Genevieve meets with Veronica's parents and assures them that she will fix their daughter and send her back home in a few months. She proudly states that she has corrected the behavior of over 1,000 girls during her time at the school, no matter how rebellious or arrogant they were. Professor Genevieve always finds a way to help them. At that moment, Veronica's mother curiously asks why all the girls at the school have identical hairstyles. The professor gives her a sharp look and explains that it's part of the school's uniform, symbolizing simplicity and obedience. She firmly believes that young minds are like sponges and that the girls who come here are soaked in bad habits. Her job is simply to wring out their minds and set them straight. Just then, a girl named Heads Colbert appears. Professor Genevieve introduces her as Veronica's roommate. Heads immediately makes a great impression on Veronica's parents by greeting them politely and respectfully. A moment later, she whispers something to Professor Genevieve, which catches the headmistress's attention. She then turns to Veronica and notices that she's chewing gum, something strictly forbidden at the school. The professor sternly reminds her that this is against the rules and orders her to spit it out. After saying their goodbyes, Veronica's parents leave. Heads takes Veronica to their room. As Veronica unpacks her bag, Heads politely offers to help, but Veronica rudely snaps at her, irritated by her overly nice behavior. She warns Heads to drop the weird act, since the headmistress isn't around. To her surprise, Heads calmly responds, saying that she's simply following the rules and will continue behaving this way, whether at school or elsewhere. Veronica gets frustrated and tries to play music on her speaker, but once again, Heads intervenes and quickly turns it off. She jokingly warns Veronica that music isn't allowed here. Before leaving the room, Heads drops another bombshell. Professor Genevieve will be changing Veronica's hairstyle very soon. The next morning, Veronica woke up to the sound of her alarm at exactly 5 a.m., with Heads also helping to wake her up. She was still drowsy, but she got up, changed her clothes, put on her school uniform, and headed to the school cafeteria. There, she found all the girls having breakfast and chatting with each other. Strangely, not a single one of them was yelling or acting naturally, which meant they had completely abandoned their former selves and were now following the school's strict system. In the next scene, we see her in class as the history teacher, Mr. David, tells them old stories about children who disobeyed their parents and ended up being punished. But we soon realize that these lessons weren't just about history. They were actually meant to brainwash the students into becoming obedient and well-behaved. Veronica felt like the teacher was exaggerating, so she interrupted him, saying that children had the right to be a little misbehaved because their age made it natural for them to be immature and carefree. Everyone in the class was shocked to hear her say that because it was the first time anyone had ever dared to challenge their teacher. However, Mr. David wasn't bothered at all. Instead, he told them that very soon, Veronica would understand his point of view and would become well-behaved, just like the others. Later, as she was walking around the schoolyard, Ms. Genevieve called her to her office. When she got there, Mr. Welch asked her to sit down and then asked for her age, something they normally wouldn't ask when booking a haircut appointment. After writing down all the details on a piece of paper, he told her he wouldn't be able to schedule her haircut for at least another week because he was too busy. However, when Ms. Genevieve insisted that she get an appointment as soon as possible, Mr. Welch canceled one of his other bookings and promised that he would cut Veronica's hair the very next day. At that moment, Veronica started to realize that something wasn't right about this school. That night, while Heidi was asleep, Veronica packed her things, preparing to escape. But as soon as she stepped outside the main door, one of her classmates, Claire, stopped her. She told her that leaving wasn't as easy as it seemed and that she would never be able to escape the school because an electric fence surrounded it, and guards constantly patrolled the roads. After that, the two started getting to know each other, and Claire took Veronica to her room, where she showed her drawings of two girls who had previously tried to escape but had been caught by the guards. She warned her that she didn't have much time left since her haircut appointment was already scheduled for the next day. Claire explained that this appointment was what transformed students into boring, robotic people. Veronica was shocked by everything she was hearing, so Claire decided to show her the truth with her own eyes. They both sneaked through a hidden hallway until they reached a strange room. There, they saw Ms. Genevieve, Mr. Welch, and another student who was tied to a chair, begging them to let her go. But Ms. Genevieve didn't care about her pleas. She simply smiled and said, "Don't worry, sweetheart, you'll be well behaved in no time." Then, she ordered Mr. Welch to begin the procedure. The restrained student started screaming in fear as they placed a bizarre helmet on her head and began working on their strange hairstyle. After a few moments, her hair completely changed, and not just that, her entire personality did too. The girl, who had once been rebellious, arrogant, and rude, became quiet and obedient in just a matter of minutes. Claire, watching from afar, turned to Veronica and told her that when she was younger, she had suffered a head injury. Because of that, a chip had been implanted in her brain, and that chip was the only thing that had saved her from turning into one of the other students when they tried to cut her hair last year. After a little while, as they continued talking, Claire told Veronica the reason why she didn't want to get close to anyone. She and her sister had come to this school together, but only Claire managed to keep her mind intact. She was afraid to leave and abandon her sister because she feared that Miss Jennifer would harm her. When Veronica heard this, she promised to come up with a plan to help her. The next day, in the cafeteria, Veronica tried to stir up the girls, encouraging them to rebel and escape. But Miss Jennifer showed up, and during their conversation, Veronica accidentally let it slip that she and Claire had witnessed a haircut session for one of the students. This enraged Miss Jennifer. Veronica ran to Claire's room, terrified, but was shocked to find that Claire had undergone another haircut session. She had lost all emotion and become just as lifeless as the other students. It turned out that after Veronica had unintentionally revealed that Claire had been spying on Mr. Welch the previous day, Miss Jennifer went to Claire, removed the metal chip from her head, and gave her another haircut. This caused Claire to completely lose herself, turning into a dull, obedient girl. With that, Veronica's only hope of escaping this school had vanished. Some time later, Veronica lay on her bed, waiting for Miss Jennifer to take her to the salon for the session that would change her forever. At that moment, Hazar entered the room, telling her it was lunchtime and that she needed to come down. But Veronica had no appetite. She started talking to Hazar about her childhood, telling her how happy she used to be when she didn't care about what was happening in the world. Then she asked her how it felt to live a dull life where someone else controlled her. But of course, Hazar didn't understand what she meant. Despite this, Veronica was determined to find a way. She tried to recall her old memories, and suddenly, she pressed play on the music player. As soon as the song started, Hazar clutched her ears in pain, but after a moment, she calmed down. The shock was that she regained her awareness, and all her old memories came rushing back. The strangest part? She didn't even remember how she had ended up at this school. Veronica was thrilled, especially since she had finally found the key to reversing the spell that controlled the girls. She wasted no time and started explaining her plan to Hazar. A little later, she went to Miss Jennifer's office and told her she was ready for the haircut session. But on the way there, she changed her attitude and started insulting the teacher. When she arrived at the office, she placed the music player near the microphone and turned on the music. The song played through every speaker in the school. At first, all the students screamed in pain because of the music, but then, they began to regain their true selves. Meanwhile, Claire was in the cafeteria when she suddenly snapped out of it. She was overwhelmed with emotion as she reunited with her sister after a year of being apart. In the final scene, all the girls ran outside to the schoolyard, screaming with joy, finally free to enjoy their lives again. They had become normal girls once more. Miss Jennifer tried to order them back to their rooms, but it was useless. With the spell finally broken, the girls went wild, dancing, laughing, and reclaiming their lives. The movie ended with Veronica, Claire, Hazar, and all the other girls running toward the school gate. If you liked the movie, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.